lot of people think it's all about having the right degree and having the perfect CV and then applying for jobs. But it's the power of networking. Yes, you have to have some knowledge, of
Yes.
course, but it's not about what you know, it's about who you know.
Welcome to the latest episode of Think Beyond Possible here in Hong Kong. I've never actually announced where we're filming from on these. In Think Beyond Possible, our goal is to extract valuable information from individuals like yourself who have seen some stuff. Almost use the S word there, but this is a family-friendly show. And extract information and try to inspire not only the next generation, but even the current generation of talent that have a gift that they haven't figured out how to unpack yet. And they just need an extra push and some knowledge from talented individuals. So today, I'm joined by Saptarshi, aka Rishi Mukherjee, who perhaps I would say of all guests, but that would only mean like guest 8 or something. 6, 7, 8. Yes. Wow. Nice. You have maybe one of the most storied histories. I think I counted like 15 experiences or something. You can correct
And
me.
it's still counting.
And counting. And you've been working with us for a few years, so it's an honor to have you on the show. But first, I'll just give you a minute or two to introduce yourself before we jump into your long history of experiences and where you are today.
Cool. Thank you, Steve, and thank you for having me on the show. First time doing documentary. Very nervous.
Documentary. We're gonna start following you around.
But thank you for having me, and really inspiring to look at the next generation, this generation, because tons of things happening, and I get inspired from other people, and it's an honor to be on the show and see if I can inspire a few, and especially we need this in Hong Kong. And
Yes.
I have this conversation with a lot of people saying that we have so many brilliant minds in Hong Kong, but we don't work as a group. And if you look at it, like I've been traveling to US a lot and visiting a lot of conferences and stuff. And when I go there, the buzz is exhilarating.
Yeah.
And when I come back to Hong Kong, it's like, where's that buzz? Where's the people?
I keep hearing that.
So, so a little bit about me. I'm Saptarshi. I've been in Hong Kong close to about 12 years now.
Okay.
Was born in India, grew up in New Zealand. Very different cultural backgrounds as well. And I've always been in tech. So one of my passion is tech, and from a very young childhood, always was fascinated by how things work. And maybe for the reason my dad is a mechanical engineer, and given that engineering background, I always used to break things and open it up and see how things work. And I used to watch trucks going past, and I'm like, oh, how does the truck work? Can I build one day? So I've always been fascinated with engineering and how things work. So that led into me to doing engineering.
Yeah.
No surprise. But when I started studying, I was always bored with one subject. So even though I did engineering, I did the whole lot of things. So I did computer science, computer system, some mechanical, some mechatronics. But my everybody said you have to just get one degree. So I kind of specialized in robotics and electronics engineering. But I think because my passion of learning, I always used to go and sit in the lectures and used to learn things.
So you used to go to other lectures that
Other lectures I was not even invited, would go from the back door and sit and understand and learn, and had a lot of friends in different like schools, and I would just make friends and learn from them and do projects together. And
you would go to different schools?
like within the same campus, but like going to the business school,
okay.
going to the law school, going to the
So you're
engineering
going to different
school.
universities around New Zealand. and
Same university,
Yeah.
University of Auckland.
Okay.
But just go to the different buildings and schools and just sit in lectures and learn. One of the things that I did in my third year was one of my professors was looking for some help in writing some papers. And one of the technologies at that time they were working on is inductive power transfer.
Okay.
And it was mainly like at that, I think Auckland University was one of the inventors of IPT, or inductive power transfer. So basically contactless energy.
Contactless energy.
Yeah.
Where are we seeing that applied today?
So today, if you look at
Like
a lot
maglev?
of, yeah,
Okay.
a lot of that. So, the cat's eye, where you drive down the road, those like on the
Oh,
highways
yeah.
that you have those like what they call, like glowing things on the side of the
Yes.
road on the highway.
Yes.
So those are powered by contactless magnetic energy.
Oh my gosh.
If you go to a lot of the factories in Japan,
Yeah.
they have those robots or high machinery that goes on, or things that carry on the ground.
Oh.
So they are like, they have magnetic coils, and you have basically like machinery or like vehicles moving on top of the coil, but it's kind of levitated a little bit. So you
Okay.
don't need electricity to charge. It gets charged by magnetic energy.
What's the practical application of these? Is this particular use case is just the lights in the road?
So lights in the roads, but also heavy machinery,
Okay.
like working, like robots
Yeah.
on the ground, or carrying things. So used to be used in like factories, in like car manufacturing,
Okay.
or a lot of manufacturing industry for moving things around, because they probably needs to have like battery charged or
Yes.
electricity plugged in. So removing that and putting it contactless so that it can, like, you just have coils on the ground so it can just move.
And you contributed. Did you contribute to this without being enrolled in the class?
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
So my professor said, oh, there is this interesting research project that
Yeah.
you're going to write a paper. I want some interns to come and do some work for me. I was like, oh, I'll do it.
Okay.
And I learned a lot, like how the technology works. And we even did a lot of experimentation to understand how the magnetic field and magnets work, etc., to contribute. And it was an opportunity to go. Then our paper got selected, and we went to one of the conferences, and I think in Sydney, and presented the paper, and it got accepted in one of the big conferences.
That's amazing.
And that was just, I was not even qualified. I was still learning in engineering, third year, but it was a great project. So I think the hunger of learning has always been there.
Yeah.
So like, I think moving on in my career, I didn't want to work, but wanted to do my research and do PhD. But then a lot of my friends were at that time like going to jobs, going to consulting. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll apply for one and let's see. So I got into IBM,
Yes.
and then my path changed and
Yeah.
became more commercial.
You did, and then so you started with electrical engineering, and obviously you had a lot of interest in university.
Yep.
So unofficially and officially,
Yeah.
and then your first experience, as I have seen on your background, was risk and performance analyst, which is a few before IBM. Then you were the associate IT architect, but you've gone through so many different types of roles.
Yeah.
And I think that one thing that would be maybe my guiding goal for today is to see how you've successfully weaved in and out of those, a combination of, corporate and startup. And, we talked about this a little bit before we started filming, but your philosophy on learning, because we both agree that we don't like online MOOCs and online
Yep.
courses. So yeah, just that journey. Like, let's just crack it with, I guess, wherever you want to begin on that journey from Vector or IBM. And then I want to slowly, quiz you on a few of these and fitness booking app. So
Yeah.
let's start with maybe IBM, if that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I can, maybe I can start a little bit before. I think one of the things that have got me into different experiences is experiential learning.
Yeah.
So I think being in New Zealand, being open, like I started work, I think before university, and my first job, which is obviously not in my CV, was a labor worker in a manufacturing firm.
Okay.
And I used to do 4 hours, 4-day shifts, 2 days off, night shifts, and we used to manufacture alternator covers for car. And at that time, New Zealand was one of the kind of the only manufacturing plant that was doing that. And they used to supply to Toyota and a lot of car manufacturers around the world.
Yeah.
And I got the privilege of joining it, one, because it's an odd job. I needed money to pay for my school. But at the same time, I learned a shitload.
Yeah.
Like from really hands-on working of how things work, from molding a steel to making the mold to actually drilling machines and CNC machines, operating the CNC machines, how to do quality checks, how to actually measure the gauge. And it was all through not like engineering, like learning, it's actual experiential learning.
Right.
And that had given me a lot of career boost when I went into engineering, because I knew what the lecturers were talking about. I knew how the production line works.
Oh my gosh. That's
And
so cool.
how, like, you know, in a way, I'm really like lucky that obviously my dad has been in the manufacturing industry, and he was at that time the operations manager. And so I used to work as basically like a worker, but I had targets, because, you know, at the end of the day, you are running a business and you have to have targets to meet.
Yes.
So we would make it fun at night. So how many of us can overachieve the target? Like if you are making an alternator cover, say for the production shift, we have to at least produce 200 of them.
Yeah.
But we would fight and make a competition on a leaderboard and say, actually, I'm going to make 250. Or somebody else will beat, hey, you know what? Like last night I beat you and made 252.
Who are these people you're competing with? You and your dad, or
No, the
other
workers,
other children,
other workers.
child laborers, and your dad just giving out candy to make you all work harder?
No, but it was, even though it was fun,
Yeah.
but it gave me a lot of life lessons
Yeah.
from a very early stage of understanding how business works, understanding how like a real part gets manufactured from ground up, from material processing to actual manufacturing, how the machines work, etc. So I think long story short, I wanted to bring it back into that experiential learning is what I see, like going to universities, and obviously it has given me a boost in terms of understanding the theoretical.
Yes.
But a lot of it, the knowledge that I've gathered is actually through work experiences.
Okay. So then how would you, for somebody who maybe isn't so lucky to have that opportunity by their parents or somebody else in life, and this is something I've discussed with some other guests on the show before, it's about getting your hands dirty.
Yep.
But I think everyone has a different way to approach it, number one. Number two, I think for a lot of individuals, it's finding the motivation to stay hungry and accountable. For you, it was obviously having that sort of semi-competitive environment. For some other people, like how would you recommend they apply this if they don't necessarily have a reason? Do you know what I mean? Like maybe taking apart a toy car to see how RC cars work and applying that to real cars. But I guess what would you recommend for people to get into experiential learning?
See, I think now things have changed a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like now information is available everywhere. But a lot of times I see even parents nowadays very pushy towards their children to go through the same learning pattern in schools and other things.
Yes, traditional
Learning, right? Like where there is a curriculum, there is a structure that really helps, but how many people are breaking things and building things?
Right.
And as I see kind of, you know, with AI and other things are happening, there will be a huge change in terms of skill-based learning. And this morning I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and he has an 8-year-old daughter, and we were discussing like, what would the next generation learn? Like they're going through school and you get a report card and say, oh, you've done English, you've done maths, and maybe if your daughter is good at maths, maybe you can also use this app to teach her, but it's optional.
Yeah.
You can't, like if you want to, you can. But how many parents are open-minded to say that, oh, like, you know, like you're using an iPad, you know how to use an iPad. What's in the iPad?
Yeah.
Can we break it open
It
and see
depends
how
on,
it
I
goes?
guess, your economic background.
But the thing is, like, having that curiosity
Yeah.
in your mind or engaging the kids into be curious.
Right.
I think a lot of times we shut our minds because it has to be done this way,
Yes.
rather than being curious and asking questions
Mhm.
of why it should work that way.
Right.
Because, like, any inventions or discovery is happen not by structured learning,
Mhm.
is by mistake following it through and asking why
Yes.
it will work.
So in your career trajectory, then,
Yeah.
let's take this and let's try to apply it in real time. So you had a good foundation. You started off by being curious in university. Obviously, before that, you had a really cool opportunity that I think a lot of people wish they had. I was my first job was cleaning up trash,
Yeah.
which was interesting. But no, I'm very grateful to have the experience. But I didn't really get to mess around with electronics. But I could see the value in that. But when you were moving on from like IBM to integration architect to become the co-founder of a booking app to even I think at one point you were the general manager of something First Light, a dancing school. Okay, so then like you obviously I guess didn't have experience in these, but you had to sort of like learn on the spot, or what was your
Yeah.
method for learning and adapting to each role? Or even for a lot of people that are afraid, they have imposter syndrome and they're even afraid to apply for a job that is like within their vertical but maybe slightly above. They just won't do it. How did you adapt to all these situations and learn either before or on the job and gain the trust of people to even give you these opportunities?
Yeah, I think and I'm still learning, right? Like, it's never a process of stopping to learn.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I'm really grateful for my training growing up, especially in IBM, being a consultant, you are basically thrown any problem. You have to solve problems.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's technical or a business or anything else. So I think a combination of multiple things. So my innate curiosity, how things work, versus the training to figure out a problem, how to solve it,
Yeah.
had given me that experience, so that no matter what problem it is, you don't have to have the in-depth knowledge or background in trying to solve it. And one of the things that I always like believe in is it's not about just one person, it's the people that you work with.
Yeah.
And everybody brings something to the table. So I might have certain knowledge or doing something, but as I partner with someone else, they might have a more in-depth knowledge in that field.
Okay.
And through that collaboration, we can create magic.
So then, like, for example, I think you mentioned the U.S. and you mentioned it's very buzzy. There's a lot of things that I think are different between the U.S. and here, where we are, like in Hong Kong, for example. And mind you, I've heard that you're like the third or fourth person this month alone that has said that same exact thing. But for people, or rather, in my experience, in places like Hong Kong, maybe it's an Asian thing as well. I mean that like Asian as a continent, not as a. People here seek very linear paths
Yes.
in growth. So it's like people are nervous to step outside of their comfort zone because they also get rejected a lot if they do try to, because when they submit their CV for a certain job, that might be something they're interested in, either the ATS system or the HR or the person in charge just looks at it for a second and goes, nope, you don't have this skill. But you have been, I guess, lucky enough or skilled enough to find your way into new opportunities, meet these people that you were discussing. Do you think what advice would you give for people that are based here in like Hong Kong or even Asia that have that curiosity, but know that the system maybe isn't conducive for that?
I think a couple of things, right? Like when I going back on the traveling to US, I think one thing that really intrigued me with talking to people is one of my VC friends actually said, like, why Silicon Valley works, because they allow people to fail, which the failing culture is not in Asia. If you fail, you're gone.
Yeah.
You're discounted pretty much. Like you're cancelled. I mean, cancel culture
It's
in
a
US
scary
is
thought for a lot
different.
of people.
Yeah, but also
Crippling.
that's why it works in US,
Yeah.
because if you are a founder or you are a startup founder, if you haven't failed, the VCs will not invest in you,
Right.
because then they know that what doesn't work or
Mm-hmm.
what has, and you can then still keep on going. You have the passion.
Yeah.
But it's not encouraged in Asia. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like really impacts the growth, that
Yeah.
mindset for people. And one of the things that I always tell a lot of my colleagues and junior staff as well is a lot of people think it's all about having the right degree and, you know, having the perfect CV
Mm-hmm.
and then applying for jobs. But in my experience, at least, and I've probably learned it quite late,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the power of networking. Yes, you have to have some, you know, like knowledge, of
Yes.
course, but it's not about what you know, it's about who you know.
Yeah.
A lot of my career path progression,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't applied for jobs.
Okay.
I've actually talked to someone at the bar, and in that conversation,
At
some
the bar.
opportunity came up.
That's cool.
And I always say, like, you know, bars is the best possible way to get a job.
Yeah, no, I almost want to agree with you. I think bars are a great place to build relationships as well. Sometimes meet people, but like if you can move it to a bar, like a more relaxed environment, and build those
Yeah,
level of relationships.
relationship.
And I do think that's one thing that maybe not in, I don't know, I can't speak on other places in Asia specifically, but in Hong Kong, I think that's one thing that
Yeah.
you can do here.
Yeah.
But networking is always it's always great to get different perspectives on networking. So perhaps we can dig into that for a second.
Okay.
What is your approach to networking? Is it really like bars where you meet people, or like you just kind of get out there, or are you really proactive in terms of reaching out to people that you're interested in meeting? Do they reciprocate?
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of has been through professional networks and
Yeah.
people I've worked with before in
Mhm.
larger organizations. But also, like, you know, I have to be guilty. Like, I haven't been networking a lot in Hong Kong. There are
Okay.
definitely a lot of opportunities of different groups and, you know, startup groups and things. But sometimes I fail to go to all of these events.
Mhm.
But that's also another way in Hong Kong that can work. Like,
Yeah.
I used to, because I've been in data and AI for a while now,
Mhm.
we used to have a small group gathering where we would hold like drinks or hold some like events or dinners where we all get together, talk about it, engage ideas,
Mhm.
exchange ideas, and see what's working.
Yeah.
But I think it's also, I find Hong Kong quite cultural, having that mindset of people to kind of do things faster.
Mhm.
But people are still very much, I don't know, like more fintech oriented.
Yeah.
Where in the US, I'm bringing up US because I see that culture
Yeah.
where you go and meet with someone in a coffee shop, you
Mhm.
exchange some ideas, and they're happy to connect you with someone,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's so much more free environment where you get ideas and create companies just meeting with someone for a half an hour coffee.
Yeah.
And if they like it, they have connections, they will connect you, then you get connected to other people,
Yes.
and boom, a startup gets started. But I find it really difficult to get that in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's one of the things I miss about the U.S. Is that open-mindedness.
Yes.
But you know, here though, for you, you mentioned that you haven't really maybe applied. I don't know if that was a bit of like an exaggeration per se, but for all these roles that you've had, you know, you've done HSBC, you've been involved with some startups.
Mhm.
Did these mostly come organically just through this network you built? Like, did you find the means to?
Yeah, it has been over years. So
Mhm.
obviously it takes time to
Yeah.
build that network and that connection. And I think like through the working relationships I had and also reaching out to other people. So like a lot of it is going out and talking to people,
Right.
right? And also within an organization, like
Mhm.
working in HSBC, I've
Yeah.
made tons of friends. Not only just in my department, like, you know, being again curious, like being out there, what's happening like in UK, for example, or
Yeah.
what's happening in Asia. Like some of the roles has really helped me in terms of being an Asia Pacific CDO.
Yeah.
That has helped me to connect with a lot more people. But I think the relationships you build stays stays longer,
Okay.
right? And those relationships one day could be business oriented or friendships that you keep friends with forever.
Yeah.
And I think those really help. And especially if you're looking at building a business or building a startup, then at least you can go through your phone list and call someone and ask for help, ask for a coffee
Or a beer.
or a beer.
So of all these roles you had, what is one that you would say, whether you network there or not, you mentioned it's not always what you know, it's who you know, and it's the people that you surround yourself with. What is one role that you think maybe conventionally you should have not been prepared for? You were not prepared for, but you sort of found your way. And how did you find your way outside of your comfort zone? I mean, you were working for aviation parts at one point. You were doing, chief data officer, HSBC, I believe. And then, where was one situation where you sort of learned once you were already in?
I mean, there have been so many experiences, right? Like, I'll probably take the example of HSBC. So again, like, it was a coffee meeting with a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he was joining HSBC to build a data analytics team. And I was like, oh, what are you doing? And at that time I was coming out of Infinity and looking for a new challenge. And it's like, oh, maybe it's interesting. And how they sold to me, like, HSBC obviously have a tons of data. They don't know what to do with the data. There is no data team. And what can we do? We have funding, and commercial banking at that time did not invest a lot of money in tech and data. But next 3 years, there is a transformation journey.
Yeah.
So we built the team from scratch. I had no idea what I was doing.
At all.
Well, I have some idea, but
Yeah.
like, being in an organization so old and bringing like a startup transformation mindset, it was
Yes.
always tough and hard. So there was a lot of challenges. And one of the challenges I clearly remember is we were part of a data analytics team, and we were working in this China business.
Yeah.
And the problem statement at that time was, we have tons of data, we have a lot of relationship managers, but how can we use data to actually improve the performance of the relationship managers?
Yeah.
So typically from a data background, a lot of my colleagues who are data scientists or data analysts, we can mix the data and build up a dashboard and give some dashboard insights to the RMs and they can use it. And I went to my boss and said, yeah, we can do that, but is it really solving the problem? Like, imagine a relationship manager. He or she is always out on the street, calling up people, trying to bring in new clients. What will a dashboard do? They're not carrying laptops continuously to like look at the numbers. So why don't we build a WeChat mini app? And my boss was like, okay, can we do it? And I was like, yeah, we can do it. So we got told, like, what, we are data analytics team. We don't do apps. And everybody rejected the idea. I still wanted to do it. My boss was like, okay, what do you need? So we put together a business case, me and another friend of ours. We went in and ran a design thinking kind of workshop with the RMs, and they have no idea what design thinking is.
Yeah.
So we got a wireframe prototype worked on with the RMs in the room, show them how it would look like. And we put together a small team of 5 developers. And from nothing to within 3 months, we built a WeChat mini program and launched it with 200 relationship managers in an organization where you have to go through all lot of security challenges and things, data security, what data can't be passed, regulations, all of that. And that was never done before. Like, it would have taken them 9 months to build a dashboard, and we built a WeChat mini program and rolled it out in 3-4 months to 200 RMs.
Wow.
And that wouldn't have been possible. So that was completely new to me.
Yeah.
I don't know how I did it, but
Yeah, I
it
was gonna
was just a
say.
network of like pushing it through. Like it's like a startup, right?
Mhm.
Like every blocker you get, you move on to the next one and you solve
Right.
the problem.
Even if you didn't, so you were not equipped. I don't know what you weren't equipped with because you must have had a data background by then anyway.
Yeah, but at the same time, like you would get like, it's a hierarchy organization, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is there to say no and block
Right.
you. But how do you maneuver that? So it's like going to the VC and
Yeah.
pitching for, I won whatever, $1 million to start my startup, and the VCs always have opinions.
Yeah.
They have no idea. They're just looking for their return on investment. But then how do you break free that and enroll someone to get that moving?
So you're a
So
proponent of design thinking.
yeah, design thinking, get them like working as together. The RM supported a lot because that's the problem statement that they wanted, so that they could use the mini app wherever they are, whenever they are. They can just check all their client lists, get all the data in their hands, and they don't need to log in
Yeah.
into HSBC, into the banking applications to get that data, because before they were working in Excels. So now if they got that helped them a lot. They saved a tons of time and they could close more clients.
Okay.
So obviously there is a business outcome to it, but then at the same time, it was how would you make that possible when the team has never built something like that?
So with all these, then taking this experience and all your experience in technology for individuals that are maybe not necessarily strong in a tech background or want to break into tech, what would you say is the most important skill to either acquire or have for moving into a new job or succeeding in a new job, aside from maybe like the hard technical skills?
Yeah, I think nowadays, especially with whole Chat GPT and all the LLMs coming through, I think the whole technical skills have made so easy, right? I think one of the key success pillars that I see is about ideas.
Yeah.
If you have an idea, you can solve it today. And you can find developers, you can find tech people,
Yeah.
and even you can just, write to Chat GPT and it will also code for you. And you don't have to kind of make it like, oh, it's so hard, I can't do it, right?
Yeah. So ideas.
So, having that idea and being curious, I think that's the key part.
Somebody so on a podcast I was listening to recently, I think they have an episode on ID. something is the new oil. It's always like idea is it was data. Now it's ideas. It's the new oil. What's next? But yes, so I do believe in that as well. But I suppose since you do have experience, and one thing I do want to jump to, and I know that you can only say so many things about this, is you've worked in startups before. It seems like you've brought a startup mentality to corporate environments. However, would you say briefly, and then I want to jump into sort of as much as you could talk about because it's education based. Do you enjoy working in a startup environment more than a corporate environment?
I think it has both its challenges. So over my now, I don't know, like been 18 years in corporate, definitely has learned a lot. And I think my nature has been always working in transformation.
Yeah.
So always go into corporate and disrupt what was before into something new.
Yeah.
So whether I worked in IBM or different other industries through IBM or in like banking or, car, I've always gone in and disrupted the industry.
You're a habitual disruptor. You like to ruffle feathers.
Yes. People hate me for that, but that's what I
just
enjoy.
Just rubbing everyone's head.
I'm probably not the best liked person in a corporate because I don't like to play the game.
But you still made a lot of friends, and a lot of people will hang out with you for a beer, so that says a lot too. Cancel each other out somehow.
Yes. But I think next part of my life or next chapter of my life, I've just resigned from the corporate and come out of the corporate environment.
Yeah.
And still planning out the next chapter of my life.
Yes.
And I think one thing that I have been really passionate about is what's the legacy I want to leave.
Yeah.
Right. For the next generation. So as I'm kind of looking at what's beyond, I want to do something meaningful, something purposeful.
Mm.
And I think one of the areas that I am really passionate about is education,
Yes.
and also for future of the next generation. So something that I am thinking and working about to look at what's next. I think corporate life has been great. I think there's tons of things you can learn, both from kind of, I think one of the key things that I've learned from corporate is also navigating through a hard structure, because a lot of it is dealing with people and managing people, and different environments have different cultures, different people to deal with, different problems to solve. So never every day has been the same, but also I've always pushed boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think one of the challenges that I always get in corporate is, how do you make, so there are different kinds of people, right? Like people who are there for just 9 to 5.
Yeah.
They're happy to be there, 9 to 5, they do their job and go home. But how do you transform them and motivate them to do something beyond? Some ways I have been successful, some ways I have not. I have built teams that has been self-sustaining. Some areas have probably not been successful. But one of the things that I've taken away from corporate experiences, it's about, I think, the challenges of working with people.
Yeah.
And that can be applied to anywhere,
Yes.
right? And that can be applied to startups as well. I mean, at the end of the day, you are working with people. And not always you will get the same like-minded people to work with.
Yeah.
And sometimes there will be differences in opinions. And how do you still enroll the other person into the idea that you have?
That's a very good skill, leading by influence, perhaps one might say.
Yeah.
So your legacy is education. So you want to leave, it's a passion, right?
Yeah.
What can you tell us about your philosophy on education? Now that we've talked about what we don't like, how we don't like learning, how you do like learning, getting your hands dirty, it's really hard to make a platform or an environment unless you're like an international school that has tons of resources and you can throw kids in very expensive playrooms and say break things and your parents are paying for it. We don't like Coursera. We don't necessarily like watching YouTube, although we discussed before, we do like it if it helps us in the moment of struggle. So your philosophy, and as much as you could tell us about what you're bringing to education.
So it's still under planning. So one of the areas that we are looking at solving is, what would experiential learning look like for next generation? I think education has been an industry where it has been least disrupted.
Yeah.
I think disruptions has happened. Like I love what Sol Khan is doing on Khan Academy.
Yeah.
Very inspiring. Follow him a lot and what he has been kind of collaborating and working. But traditional education has always been the same. Like, but if I use the first principle thinking of, if you had to redesign education all over again, what would that look like? Because one of the things that I believe, and it's coming from my background and also extended family and others, where I think knowledge and education is the pathway to solve poverty. And partly growing up in India, I have seen so many of my family members who did not have access to education.
Yeah.
And they're still suffering today. While I have been really privileged to have the access to education and higher education, and I have made something for myself. But a lot of people don't have that access. So one of my mission is to, how do we make easy access of education to everyone? I have a friend who has a business or a lot of social enterprise running in Bangladesh. And one of the conversations I was having with him, and one of my friend who is one of the principals in Harvard School, it's like, if you are rich and your father is a CEO or some high flyer, you always get a lift ahead. You always get the privilege to start somewhere else. right?
Yeah.
But then if you are not, up in the society, you always have a disadvantage.
Yes.
But I believe now with the power of AI and a lot of the other technology that are coming up and will be coming up in the next, 5 to 10 years, we should have an equal playground for everyone to have that choice.
Yeah.
Right. But obviously it's the choice of the people to choose it, but at least it should be accessible. And how do we make it accessible to everyone? And that's the area that I'm looking at.
Okay.
So it could be a platform, or it could be an organization,
Yeah.
or it could be a mixture of software and hardware.
Yes.
That we can
I think
provide.
that's it. Yeah.
One of the projects a long time in New Zealand I did was $1 laptops, and it was for an African organization where we tried to create a device that could be just $1, and it could be given to everyone, and they could use that for basic learning.
Yeah.
Right. But there are so many other options now, right? I don't know the answer. So I'm actually going back to drawing board, and I have a group of very inspiring people that I'm working with to look at what would that look like if we take in first principle thinking. And I always love what Elon Musk says, like, if you had to reinvent everything, what would that look like?
Yeah.
Don't take no for an answer. And it was funny, I was talking to someone yesterday, and typically we're like, what's your background in education? Do you have someone expert in education?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Like, I don't need a background in education. I have gone through the system, and I might not know exactly how the education system works, but if I'm in it, I'll not be able to disrupt it.
Yes.
And if I'm coming from outside, people might hate me for it.
Yeah.
But there could be a very new way of thinking that can cause some ripple effects.
Yes.
So I don't know how successful I will be, or can I make that ripple effect or not, but at least that's what I'm passionate about.
I think that's beautiful, because I think if you can let people rotate through various experiences, whether it's like the software, like, when I was growing up, I did like a day trip to a vocational school, right? When I was in between, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to university, college or not. And they have like a place where you can work on cars. They have a computer lab. They have a kitchen. They have, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, man, if I could just for 3 months at a time move through all these different rooms and just see what I like, and then if it's hardware and you figure you do like tinkering with things and building things, and you feel like you have a product in your hand, you're organically going to be driven to figure out how to sell it and market it and pitch it to a VC, and find the right people to help you work on it. So I guess we're just not exposed to those. So that's the key. But hands-on, because a lot of people have issue, rightly so, staring at computers and ingesting information for a long period of time. So I do hope that you're able to make some magic of this, whether it's, here in Hong Kong or somewhere else in the world. Truly inspiring. But where should people keep up with you?
So LinkedIn is probably the best.
Okay. And then you're going to be in a stealth startup, and I guess we'll see what comes in the coming months. This has been fantastic. You're a very inspirational gentleman, and there's so much more. Thank you so much for joining us on Think Beyond Possible. I think you've given a lot of inspirational points, a lot of real-worthy material that we could use. And I guess you seem like the type of guy where someone can invite you out for a beer, because you have that spirit. So follow him on LinkedIn, ask him out for a beer. And hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting. Very inspiring.